Hi everyone, welcome back to the Harbinger podcast. Today we have joining us Faisal Galaria, CEO of Blippar, a pioneer in augmented reality. Now, Blippar has a roller coaster of a story. The one-time unicorn raised $100 million plus in venture funding, but struggled to find a sustainable business model, burned through its cash, and entered bankruptcy proceedings before returning as a new business based on its drag-and-drop AR content creation tool, think WordPress for AR. Faisal joins to guide Blippar's relaunch and set it on a sustainable growth track, leveraging experiences from his time scaling Skype as an early executive and Spotify as SVP of International. Faisal shares with us what Blippar is working on these days, key drivers for AR adoption, from COVID-19 to 5G, what developments he sees in the AR/VR space, as well as examples of what Blippar is working on with clients, including with key clients in China and Asian markets. Hi, Faisal. Thanks so much for joining the Harbinger podcast. So there's a lot to cover today, including Blippar, some of the work that you're doing with the company, and also other developments and insights you'd like to share with us. But before we get to that, I'd love to hear a bit more about your story to date. You had some very formative experiences across consulting, Skype, Spotify before Blippar. So could you share a bit more about your story before we step into anything else?
Morning, Adam. I'm happy to do that. I joined Blippar just under a year ago, but I started my career almost 25 years ago. And actually, I never thought I would be in business or in the digital world. I went through school and university thinking I was actually going to be an athlete, and I used to run 400 meters quite competitively. And the 400 meters is a sprint discipline. And I think what's really interesting is the 7 or 8 years that I was running competitively has impacted the way that I work as well. It's given me it's honed my competitive spirit or tendencies, and because it's a sprint, you'll see that reflected in the way and in the companies that I've worked at, like Skype and Kayak and Spotify. I've had sprints in all of those, but then I also need the off season as well to recuperate afterwards. But to your point, I was really lucky to join Skype as an early employee. I joined from Ofcom, which is the UK's telecoms and media regulator, and I was lucky to meet Nicholas Stenstrom, who was the founder of Skype whilst I was a regulator, and jumped from being the gamekeeper to being a poacher, and that started a 15, 16-year career in scaling technology companies, including Skype, Kayak, and Spotify, and I'm really excited about about being the CEO of Blippar.
Right. Thanks for sharing that, Faisal. And it's funny that you mentioned you ran a 400 meters because I used to do that as well in high school and part of college. It's certainly a sprint, but unlike the 100 or 200, we just sprint all out. The 400 requires some speed endurance as well. It's a very painful race. So I totally get your analogy. One more thing before we dive into your work at Blippar is I recall, I think when you were at Spotify, you were SVP of International, and you spent quite a bit of time in China and Asia. Could you share a bit more about that with us as well?
Happy to. Yeah, that's right. In the early days of Skype, we were very lucky and fortunate to have investment from Li Ka-shing, who of course is a very prominent investor through the Horizon Ventures Fund. And as a consequence of that, we decided to investigate working with Tom.com, the portal, and investigate building Skype in China, out of Beijing, which we did. But of course, one of the things that makes Skype unique is that it's built on a peer-to-peer network. And when we started, although we had a commercial joint venture that built upon the investment that Horizons made, one of the bigger problems we had to figure out was the infrastructure question because for a peer-to-peer network to work, you need to have some peers there in the first place. So part of what I worked on with some of the senior technologists was how to build a supernode network and to start the peer-to-peer network in China, working with Horizons and Tom. And one of the things that people may not know about Skype is, when we were acquired by eBay, about 25% of the users worldwide came from China. So it was a really important part of our growth story.
Okay, I didn't know that. And this was in the 2000s, right? When you were spending time in China with Skype, mid 2000s.
That's right. So
okay.
I joined Skype in 2003, the year that it was. The year that we went from being a minimum viable product to being a service that people could download and use. And I think I was spending time in Beijing. It will have been 2004 and early 2005.
Gotcha. Yeah, very interesting. And we'll spend a bit more time getting your perspective on how things might have changed in China, and when we talk a bit more about Blippar and some of the work that you're doing. But also, I also mentioned that your work with Skype and Spotify, which are essentially European unicorns, and also getting to China, relatively early. It was still kind of beginning of this tech boom built on internet, mobile internet, and the like. So you really touched on I suppose you were at the forefront of this trend for multiple countries and markets. It's very fascinating.
It was obvious to us, even back then, and we're talking about 15 years ago, about both the size of the market, but also for the of the appetite for people in all parts of the world, but particularly in economies that were adopting new technologies very quickly and skipping some of the skip perhaps from fixed broadband to fixed mobile, skipping some of the technologies, how quickly these markets were developing and becoming real technology powerhouses. And we saw that happen. We saw that happen at Skype back in the early 2000s, but of course that's just accelerated over the last 15 years.
Totally see that. And now you're running Blippar, which has been at the forefront of augmented reality for much of the 2010s. And it's a company that's close to my heart. I worked at Blippar for a couple of years in the mid 2010s, spent time in New York and also China for Blippar and a corp dev team. So Blippar is a very interesting story, Faisal. And I'm sure some of the folks that listen to our podcast, they probably heard about Blippar and the ups and downs over the course of the 2010s, raising a lot of money, developing a lot of excellent technology, having some good products and use cases, although in other cases burning quite a bit of cash. So we won't go through like the full history here, but I'd love to get your perspective on how you came across Blippar, why you decided to join, and how things are going.
So I think you put your finger on it, right? Blippar was a pioneer of augmented reality. Back in 2011 was when it got started, and they were building AR experiences and activations on 2.5G networks on the very first generations of smartphones. So all credit to the team, to be able to, from a technology perspective, to make that happen. I got to know Spotify Blippar a few years later, whilst I was at Spotify, and we were launching Spotify in the United States. And the way that you would get early access to Spotify was through scanning a can of Coca-Cola, who were our sponsorship and commercial partner, and when you scan the can with your mobile phone using Blippar, of course, you would get a code to be able to unlock early access to Spotify. So that's where I first came across Blippar, and that was something like 2011, 2012. And I've kept an eye on the business ever since, but it really was far too early. The ecosystem that's now evident, and fast moving towards the business, and the whole AR space now, 5G spectacles. You've got some of the big American companies like Google integrating AR into mobile search, and TikTok and Snap, increasingly using AR as part of their social networks. Simply weren't there, 7 or 8 years ago. So it now feels like the market is running towards augmented reality really quickly. And when the opportunity came up to take Blippar, which had gone into administration in 2018, and refocus it on this opportunity, which was, where the time now seems to be right, came along. It felt like an opportunity that was too good to miss.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And could you help us better understand AR? Is most of us have heard about AR, VR at this point. I think VR, most people have actually tried some of the games or some of the 360 videos. For AR, could you walk us through a couple of examples or use cases, help us understand what's starting to work more today that wasn't working before?
It's really simple. I think in terms of what we have now that we didn't have 10 years ago was we now have faster bandwidth, and phones have faster and better processing power on the devices. So whether that's using augmented reality to hold up your phone in front of you and see a car in your driveway or in your street, to be able to walk around that car as if it was really there, to be able to change the color of the car, change the tires, open the door, look around inside the car. That's an example of using augmented reality. Another one might be in the sphere of e-commerce. Traditionally, e-commerce is very flat and two-dimensional, and hasn't really changed over the last 10 or 15 years. But when you can actually look at a product, and whether that's a pair of sneakers or a jacket or a handbag, and see that in 3D, and turn it around and walk around it and see it from different angles, using your mobile phone, that's augmented reality. And the use cases can be across marketing and advertising that we've discussed, but increasingly we're seeing use cases across e-commerce, education, learning and development. So showing engineers how to fix something without actually the component being broken. One of the use cases that I'm most excited about is in the field of healthcare, and you can imagine, for example, holding up your phone in front of your own arm if you're a diabetic, and need to regularly inject yourself, and if you can see the veins on your arm, superimposed on your arm, you're more likely to be able to inject yourself properly. And I think across military and engineering, healthcare, e-commerce, there are what we're describing really is a new experiential computing platform that's much more intuitive than using a laptop or using a smartphone.
Got it. So it sounds like most users would use their smartphone as a means of accessing the AR content. How important is it to, I suppose, shift to smart glasses or other products where you don't need to access that content through a smartphone, or you can be hands-free, for example?
Look, I think that's clearly the end state in which augmented reality, a persistent augmented reality environment, surrounds you, and you can interact with it all the time. And that's clearly clearly the end game. But in the meantime, there are 4 billion mobile phones around the world that have either the Android or the Apple AR tech stack already downloaded, ARKit and AR Core, which means that augmented reality is already a technology that's very, very widely available globally and ready to be used. And Blippar works with both of those tech stacks as a content creation platform. And so, whilst spectacles, AR spectacles or wearables might be the future, there's a definite use case or already that applies to every single cell phone in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to get a sense of how Blippar's position was doing differently now versus before. Because I recall a couple of years ago, or when I was still there, it invested heavily in technology. It was building literally the underlying computer vision technology, the augmented reality engine, a lot of stuff that actually sounds comparable to ARKit, except it was Blippar, a startup that was building a lot of that, plus working with clients and kind of coming up with solutions for advertising that were generating revenue. So today, what does Blippar focus on building? And then what is its business model?
Great. So look, you were there at a time when AR was just getting started. So Blippar had to build every part of the ecosystem itself. And as you said, of what early Blippar was doing in machine learning, in deep learning object recognition and computer vision is now being done by some of our partners, whether that's Apple or Android, which means that we can now really focus on on the technology and the IP that Blippar has been creating for the last decade, which is Blip Builder, and Blip Builder is our content creation and authoring tool. It's a drag and drop, simple user interface that allows anybody, be they art students through to agencies and brands, to simply drag and drop and create AR experiences that work using Android and Apple smartphones. And that's so the heart of what we do now is this content creation tool, which is a SaaS platform, which is used by agencies and brands and enterprises, and then on top of that, we do have a small R&D heavy studio, and what that studio does is custom work that really pushes the boundaries of R&D and technology in the AR space to do really exciting and novel AR experiences. And it's a little bit like a Formula One team, Adam, in the team experiments and does and puts things onto the track, which we then learn from, develop, and then integrate back into the Blip Builder platform, so that's available. All the development available to anyone that uses the SaaS platform.
Got it. That makes sense. Is there still a team that builds customized AR solutions per client, or is it primarily just give Blip it out to the masses and then build their own experiences?
That's the studio that I just mentioned. That's the small studio. What we do is, the Blip Builder platform is primarily how agencies and brands, if they want to build their own AR experiences, and it's now pretty simple to do that, can do that using the Blip Builder platform. But when you want to really push the boundaries, and we can talk about some of those examples, and I know you want to talk about OnePlus. When we do something that really pushes the boundaries, clients can come to us, and we will build those those novel, world's first R&D heavy experiences using our studio, and clients come to us when they want to do something really exciting, and we'll build it for them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do want to get to OnePlus because that was a recent activation that was really exciting.
Sure. What, as you mentioned, look, OnePlus was an example of a solution which was right to be built by our custom team. OnePlus were launching a new mobile phone, the OnePlus Nord, and we were called back in March when it became obvious to the OnePlus team that the conventional launch, the kind of thing that would happen in a convention center, where you invite 5,000 journalists, and the CEO comes and speaks to the journalists, and shakes their hands and shows them the phone and allows everyone to pick up the phone and look at it, could not happen in the June-July timeframe because of the global COVID pandemic. And so they had to find a different way of launching the phone. And they had the realization, of course, that the OnePlus Nord phone is a 5G phone with AR capability built in. So they had the idea of why not launch this using the technology that's in the phone to showcase it. So they asked us to do the world's first live AR launch, which they gave us less than 3 months to do it, which was really not very very long. But regardless, in July, we supported the launch of their new phone. It was a 26-minute long AR experience where Carl Pei, the CEO of the company, came onto a virtual stage that you could see by holding your phone in front of you. And so rather than the journalist having to go to a convention center, the convention center came to you wherever you are, like in your kitchen or in your study. The convention center came to you, and we were able to do a highly interactive AR launch of that new mobile phone, which in many ways was better than a traditional launch, because rather than just inviting 5,000 journalists, they were able to invite 500,000 fans of OnePlus. And what's really exciting is, in the end, it was so exciting, and the response was so great that actually, in the end, 620,000 people saw the live AR experience through Blippar on the day itself, and subsequently, nearly 7 million people have watched the live launch, the live AR experience, streamed on the internet, which has far surpassed any of the expectations that anybody had. But this was a world's first. So it's been great to learn how successful this as AR as a product launch medium has been.
Yeah, well, congrats on that. That sounds really cool. And a couple of things that come off of that. First of all, you mentioned that they considered launching this way, given the circumstances of kind of social distancing and COVID. So I was wondering, given the success of this project, in the future, would they be doing more launches via AR, or is it something that's more relevant for a COVID type environment?
Do you know what? I think what's happened over the last few months, because of the pandemic, has accelerated how we use technology, and we've jumped 4 or 5 years essentially into the future. And this really is, I think, what we demonstrated here was the scale at which you can do something like a product launch, which previously people didn't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
Even last year, we were able to take a launch which would otherwise have just gone to 5,000 people and took it to 7 million people. And we made the OnePlus Nord launch the biggest, most successful launch in Amazon India across any product ever. And the Nord phone became super successful and the number one selling phone on Amazon in the UK, France, Germany, and Italy. So I think this is an example of a technology change which is now here for good, and we're talking with many different companies across not only consumer electronics, but you can imagine doing product launches, like new cars, in augmented reality, and even
Yep.
with even thinking a little bit more creatively. We've had some conversations with sports clubs that want to present their new players and new shirts, which have global audiences using augmented reality, because we're not going back to a situation in the near term where people can be in close proximity with each other, but this ironically allows you to take that experience and massify it across even bigger audiences than were planned this time last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a number of, I suppose, use cases and new ways of doing things that have come out during this pandemic period, and has been accelerating, shift in many ways. So I noticed that OnePlus, they've launched around the world. You mentioned India, UK, France, etc. They're also a Chinese company. So, given that many of our audience members are quite interested in China and Asia, primarily, in particular China, what else is Blippar doing in China when it comes to business activities or potential investment?
Well, you'll know, Adam, that traditionally and historically, China has been a really part of the growth story of Blippar, and clearly things went into stasis during last year because of the changes at Blippar. But I think when we look forward into the next couple of years, and even some of the stuff that we're doing already, where we're talking with a number of important Chinese companies about doing not only similar type of product launches and marketing and advertising experiences with Chinese companies, and that covers everything from makeup and beauty try-ons to showcasing new consumer electronics like headphones and TVs. But also, one of the things that I know from having launched Skype in China and worked with Spotify in China is the importance of having a local partner. And it's very early days. For us, we only relaunched the company less than a year ago, but China is a huge market. It's a huge opportunity. We're very cognizant of the fact that 5G and many 5G enabled phones will be first seen in China and Asia, and it's a huge market, and we fully intend to be there, and are looking at a number of options for how to be there and who to partner with.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's very exciting. I mean, some of the work I did when I was at Blippar involved China. I don't think I can share much on this podcast, and while I was under NDA, but it's good to hear there's more stuff going on there. You also mentioned 5G and what that enables. So yeah, like you're right. I mean, just 5G in general across the world, but many areas in China currently do have 5G base stations installed and are probably faster to market. Are you talking to any of the telecom operators or some of the related players? How do you take advantage of that?
well, we can't announce anything now, of course.
Okay.
But look, one of the really exciting things that's happening, is the rollout of 5G by the telecoms operators. And when you've got 100 times the bandwidth of 4G with less latency, it really changes what's possible with augmented reality. Clearly, a 4G network is perfectly fine for streaming a movie or for messaging on WeChat. But when you have such an increase in available bandwidth and speed, it really points to a more experiential and immersive capability. That's the next generation of the internet. That could be holographic type calling. It could be 3D shopping. There's going to be a lot of innovations that we see in the next 5 to 10 years. But in the immediate shorter term, one of the things that we're really excited about is working with mobile operators who are selling new 5G phones and 5G contracts, and helping them to explain to their customers, why they need 5G, why they need 100 times the bandwidth of 4G. And the way to do that is by showing them, we think, some of the AR experiences that are going to be now enabled using augmented reality.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Could you share with us some of the examples of these AR use cases that are enabled by 5G? Is it something different from what you're currently offering to clients and in the experiences we've discussed? Or is it just some of these experiences that are done even better and more, the experience being even more smooth and realistic?
I think we touched on something like holographic calling, which I think is going to be really exciting. I think we've seen in the last few years, advancements in calling, from traditional calling over a fixed phone or a mobile to Skype type calling on voice over IP, and then Zoom. But all of those have taken place in a very one or two dimensional format. Even Zoom calling, it's great, but I still see a flat representation of a human, and people aren't 2D, right? And you lose a lot of the emotion and sensitivity when you reduce things down into 2D. So when you can see somebody in 3D, it creates a whole different level of emotion and allows our intuition to work as well. So I'm really excited about that. But alongside that, I think we'll also see some real advancements in gaming, and allow multiplayer AR gaming, which I think is going to be that you can really only do that in 5G. I think we'll also see people being almost transported into sports environments, and be able to see themselves in different sporting environments. You can imagine something like the Olympics or the World Cup in a couple of years' time, where many people will be able to feel as if they're really there in Tokyo or in Qatar, and at the sidelines, and seeing themselves being in those places using augmented reality. So it's both clearly what we do today will be better and faster and smoother, but I think it's also going to enable a whole world of new experiences. It's kind of like going from laptops to mobile phones, and then going from mobile phones to this new computing platform. And I think once spectacles are available more widely, that will be the start of a whole new era of 3D immersive computing capability.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's very exciting. And I wonder, as you run Blipper, I'm sure you come across investors and other types of collaborators in the broader ecosystem. So, because AR, VR was very hot from an investment perspective, I suppose the early 2010s, and many of them were betting on this dream of something that could be big, a new platform. It clearly cooled down in the mid 2010s, probably, even last couple of years. I've heard a little bit of talk, a bit more sentiment around investing more into these areas. And certainly a lot of it's been driven by COVID as well. I was just wondering from your perspective, as you run Blipper, what are you hearing from the capital side, and like what's required to kind of bring this to further fruition?
I think global investment and venture capital is one side of the equation. We're very lucky to be well backed and funded. But the other side of the equation, these investors also require exits, and you can see from the M&A perspective, there's AR has been very, very hot over the last 12 to 18 months. There seems to be an acquisition in this space, if not every week, then every month. And so one of my observations, Adam, from having been on the other side of the table and actually having invested or being an investor previously, is that there tends to be an overestimation of the capability of technology in the short term, but an underestimation in the long term. And I think we're now in that part of the cycle where a lot of the hype, around the early 2011, 2012 time, as you say, hasn't come to pass. But we haven't really understood or begun to understand what's going to happen as we come out of that into where we're actually now seeing real AR, VR deployments. And we know we hear about some of the spectacles that are being developed, some of the wearables that are developed, some of the very big investments into AR and VR. Now, the fact that the ecosystem is with 5G being now rolled out globally, it means that the ecosystem is now ready for and ready to support across, from a product perspective, from a device perspective, from a software perspective, the ubiquity of AR, and for that to be a useful tool across many different verticals.
Yep. Yeah, that's good to hear. And I do notice there was some M&A. I mean, across both AR and VR, whether it's Next VR, Escape Technologies, 60.ai is a company I actually looked at last year, visiting last year when I was in the Bay. But it seems like they were picked up by Niantic Lab, right? I think. That's yeah. Okay, fascinating. I wonder. Yeah, we'll see what they do with that technology. I mean, Niantic with their Pokemon Go, that was extremely interesting in 2016, because I suppose one of the first examples of AR being monetized well, although it wasn't really a kind of true immersive AR experience, like a very simple kind of overlay of like a Pokemon on the real world. But clearly they have something more in store. So that's very exciting. So we spent quite a bit of time talking about Blipper in terms of where it was, where it is today, what it does, and some of the activations with OnePlus, with other clients. So, and we talked a little bit about China to an extent, and also about 5G. So I think that's very helpful to get an overview of what's going on in this space. Now, another topic that's top of mind for a lot of people is geopolitics. Is China and U.S. tech, and what's going on? Is there I mean, clearly it seems to be a increasing bifurcation between kind of a U.S.-led Western versus a kind of a Chinese kind of tech sphere. So, there's a lot to talk about there, a lot of politics as well. We'll probably keep off this show. But for you, Faisal, when you think about what's going on in the world, how does that impact Blippar and the type of work that you do with regards to China?
Look, we're a technology company, and one of my observations, having been lucky to be part of Skype and Spotify and Kayak, is that technology, the best technology companies in the world are global technology companies, and Blippar has also been a very global technology company. And as you said at the top of the show, you were part of the team and helped us grow in China. So from our perspective, technology is global. Blippar has a global provenance, and we aim to be the AR platform of choice for any brand, agency, or enterprise, and we'll work with providing our best of breed AR solution everywhere. We're not a political. We don't seek to get into politics. We're a technology company, and our role is to democratize the availability of AR as a tool set to everyone.
Got it, Faisal. So in that case, wish you and team well when it comes to your global global operations and pursuits, whether it's in China or the rest of the world. So we're running low on time today, Faisal. Was there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we wrap up for another time?
Well, I haven't been back to China for the last few months for obvious reasons, but as we discussed, I've spent a lot of time in the region with Skype and Spotify in the past, and we're looking forward to being present in China. We've got a lot of discussions going on, and I look forward to being able to share those with you, perhaps in person, sometime next year.
Yes, that would be lovely. I really look forward to that time. Thanks so much for being on our podcast and for sharing a lot of your unique perspective across the past decades in technology.
All right. Bye for now, Adam.
All right. Take care, Faisal. Cheers.